Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we've got another fantastic video for you. We are doing the week 2 of the May project. And so if you're with us last week, this was the week 1, it was the dove. And now here for the week 2, we've got a husky dog here. And so this is going to be a fun project, especially for the dog lovers here. And so we're going to go ahead and get started here. Of course, I've got my trusty apron on to protect all of my beautiful clothes, as should you. And we have many fantastic glasses here. We're going to be actually saving these two for a future project for the week 3 and 4 of the kit here. But today we're going to be using the white and grayish glass. I'm going to go and set this down and we will go ahead and get started. So of course we are using our vinyl adhesive backed patterns here, and everything you see for sale, everything you see here, we do sell it, and from our online store. So if you're interested in any of those products, I'll be sure to be leaving a link in the description. This is also a part of our stained glass mastery community, and so if you're interested in that, free classes, patterns, and many other resources that I think you're going to find helpful, especially as a stained glass beginner. So today we are, of course, going to start with the cutting, and here we are. Okay, I got my glass scoring tool, and so we've got our pattern here. Now what we are going to be doing is this area that I have marked, we're going to be using the gray glass. And I've got these lines here, that is the direction of the glass. So you see this is pretty obviously has a direction that we're going to want to be taking into consideration. So if you purchase the kit, it will come with one of these sheets of gray and white sort of streaky gloss. And this I believe is from Kokomo. Yes, it is. And it does have a smoother and a rougher side, so be sure to be cutting on the smoother side. Okay? So, and that would be this side. And so I like to mark the direction. It's pretty clear here, but we're just going to do that just as a best practice. So I'm actually going to leave these pieces on there, and I'm going to go ahead and peel these and get started placing them. So again, this one I want to be sort of in this direction. And you're going to want to place them so that you get a pretty decent yield out of your your glass here. You don't want to be wasting a lot of glass, okay? Now, I'm going to place that first piece there, and we are going to continue on. And if you are a part of the Stained Glass Mastery community and you are joining us today, I'd like to hear from you in the chat. Let me know how your day is going. Happy Mother's Day to you all. If you are a mother, and of course to your mother, as we all do have one. We would not be here if we did not. So thank you to those. And so we're going to go ahead and get these pieces on here. There we have it. And now we are going to be placing the white pieces that we're going to be using. So we're going to go ahead and this is most of the pieces. And this particular white glass does not really have a direction, so we're going to kind of just get them on there in such a way that will be used efficiently. And actually, oh no, this is actually going to be a little void. So this one, it's got this little cut right here. My nails are kind of short. I'm going to use my X-Acto blade to peel this thing up. There we are. So there's a little bit of a void in between the two legs. Kind of looks kind of hard to tell, but it sort of looks like that. And we are continuing on. And welcome back, Bobby. Thanks for joining us. And so this one, it's a pretty cool topic for a stained glass pattern, but I will not lie, it is a bit of a challenge, this one. I can already tell it's got a lot of unique shapes and cuts. So for a beginner, maybe not the best one to try to tackle, but, you know, with a little bit of practice, I think you can do it. A little bit of trial and error too, I would say. See, some of these pieces are really kind of wacky, so it's going to be a little bit tricky to get those perfectly every single time. And Bonnie P, thank you for joining us. Hello to you as well. And if you are a mother, I would like to hear from you. We'll wish you a happy Mother's Day. So be sure to mention in the chat. Okay, so we've got all of our pieces placed here. We're going to go ahead and get started cutting. Now, what I think we're going to want to do, let's see what we can do here. I guess we're going to start with this grayish gloss. Now, what I like to do, go ahead, I use my little foam thing with a sponge. I'm sorry, it's a little plastic container with a sponge saturated with the cutter oil. And we'll just cut a nice little corner off here. And this is normally how I like to do it. You can see this is what I did right here on the first project for the white gloss. We did the dove last time, and it was a pretty big, you know, it was all white gloss pretty much. We could have used some of this gray and white gloss too, but elected not to. Okay, so now what I like to do is separate all of these pieces. And I've got a feeling that a couple of these are going to need to be having a few tries, if I'm being honest with you. So we're going to keep all the gloss out. We're not going to be too overconfident and put it all away too early. Now, let's see how this goes. That might be a little bit too sharp of a cut. I might even do another cut here just to try to make sure we don't have any problems. So again, if you are cutting glass, you're going to want to make sure to have a nice consistent pressure, and then using the grosiers you can kind of separate the glass along the score line. So that's normally the way I like to operate here. And let's see how we are doing. I can see if I can give you another view here, give you an idea. So again, I like to use these vinyl patterns because you can use them as a template for, you know, cutting the glass, and even for opaque glass. So it's just really nice, quick, and easy to use. I really enjoy using these. Oops. Okay. And Bobby mentioned she's a grandmother. So happy Mother's Day to you, Bobby. And so once I scored the glass, we just slowly but surely, there we have it. And we can go ahead and clean up all the little edges around the glass on the grinder. We're going to see that a little bit later on in the video. So now I've got a lot of shards right here on the table. I like to take my table brush, just sweep them all off. Very good. Okay. And sometimes if it's a pretty big amount of glass sort of protruding out from the pattern, you can kind of knock it down with the grosiers just a little bit. But this is pretty close, so I'm going to leave it like that. And with that, we've got our first piece cut. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of put them on the pattern just to give us an idea of what is going on here. And I believe it's something like that. Okay, got our first piece right there. Perfect. All right, and we will continue on. Oops, this is the wrong tool. And let's see. We have Bonnie P mentioning that she is a mother and a grandmother, and that her own mom passed a few months ago. I'm sorry to hear that. And so it has been a tough day for she and her siblings. Welcoming the live as a way to take my mind off the day. Well, good. I am glad that I can be here for you and help you with that. But happy Mother's Day to you and your mother, of course. And oops, knocked that one right out of my hands. But it survived. All right. I'm fortunate that my mother is still here, and I will be visiting her after the live stream today. So I know that's probably really hard on you, Bonnie, and for all the others who might be missing their mothers today. But at least we have all the fond memories of them, and that's what they would have wanted you to remember too, I think. So this is kind of a tiny little piece, a little bit of a challenging cut, but we got it. We're definitely going to be cleaning that one up on the grinder. And we're going to sweep all these glass shards right off of here. We're going to do a nice... There we go. And normally I like to just score all of the edges and then go back and break them all off with the grosers. Saves a little bit of time going back and forth, picking it up, putting it down. So that's how I normally like to do that. Now see, this is going to be a tricky piece. We're probably going to get it a little bit closer so our grosers have a little bit more leverage to cut that one down. I'm going to try to separate this glass just oh, look, see, so that is less than ideal. So we're going to go ahead and recut this. I think we might be able to fit right here. If not, I've got plenty of this gray glass, and we are probably really going to need it. And this piece, let's see if it will just barely fit on there. And it will. So we got lucky with that. So we're going to have to do a little bit of a tricky cut right here. Let's see if we can do it on the first try. Now I could probably just move this one a little bit down, but I'm a little bit of a stubborn person, so I'm going to try to do it right where it's at. And I'm not trying to follow any of the lines here for this one. I'm just trying to get this piece separated so I can use it for both of my shapes here. So what I'm going to do, you can kind of see that score sort of starting from the back side. See, I'm just going to try to keep tapping it along that score line, and we got it. So that's what we wanted there. And honestly, this is all probably pretty much close enough where I'm just going to go ahead and grind that down. I might grosier it a little bit just to knock it down a little bit closer to that vinyl template there, just like that. And then I can just grind the rest of the way. Now we've got a lot of glasses over here. Sweep all that off. Okay. There we go. So again, we're going to try to, I'm going to probably do this a little bit differently this time. I want to leave a lot of that meat on there, get this part off, and now this piece we're going to want to cut down. I'm probably going to remove the vast majority of this area like that, and then I can do another score line right here, and that's going to get me a little bit closer. So I'm just going to gradually work these grosers along that score line, and normally I like to do it with the flat end on top. Gives you a little bit more leverage, and just very slowly and carefully. Slowly and carefully, okay? And what I'm probably going to go ahead and do is, first of all, sweep this off, and then we're going to swing this in just a little bit more, take a little bit more of that meat off, and it's going to give us just that much more leverage. See that? Now we can just get a little bit closer. See that? That's what we want. Much better this way. There we go. All right. We got it. And Connie says, hello, stained glass group. I am a mother of 2, grandmother to 4. A special gift. My husband took me to an art glass store 120 miles away to stock up on glass yesterday. That is awesome. Very good husband you've got there, Connie. Very nice man for doing that. So a good group we've got here today. And happy Mother's Day to you, Connie. Okay, so we've got this piece, sort of like the neck area, something like that. All right. And this one, it's kind of this is sort of the butt area, sort of this right leg looks like, and sort of the back, back/side area. So it's going to be a little bit of a complex cut here. Not, really not probably as bad as that last one, though, if I'm being honest with you. Now, I think this white glosses that we have coming up are going to be the more challenging ones. Now this, I am going to go ahead and do the same thing. We're going to do a little bit of a shallow cut here, and then we can, there we go. See, that's exactly what I wanted to see. And now this one will just break very easily. Very easily, just like that. That's what we want to see. See that? We're going to sweep all that off. I think I might have gotten a little shard in here. Just a tiny little hairline shard. Got it out. Happens sometimes. You might want to wear gloves. Hands are, pretty used to it, so not too bad. Okay, we're going to do a nice... Now, this little tiny corner is going to be hard to keep, but we are going to try to keep it. And let's see if we can get it on the first try here. And if we don't, we'll see how bad it was. So I'm going to kind of remove this, just like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to, again, make this cut much shallower. Remove a lot of that meat that's just in our way. And we're going to do the same thing on this side. And I'm hoping this will just work out on the first try. Sort of the nature of the beast when you're working with glass. You just never really quite know how it's going to break. You have a good idea, but until it does, you don't want to be writing it off. So we're just there we go. So it's holding on for the moment, but that's the easy side to cut. The first side is always a little bit of the easier side. And are we going to get it? I think even what I'm going to do, of course, sweep this off. And I think I'm even going to knock this down even further. See, just like that. It's just going to give us a little bit of a better chance here. Got it. All right. There we go. So we kept it. We kept that little point there. So, we'll try to keep it throughout the project. Sometimes they kind of randomly break off, just getting a little bit too much pressure applied, in the soldering. Whenever it's really small like that, the heat, it heats up a lot faster relative to a thicker area. And, glass cracks in the heat, so. And extreme heat from like an irons per se, not necessarily as severe with a, sunlight or something. Okay, there we go. Just gonna take off a little bit more here. And we've got our gray glass cut. I'm gonna go ahead and clear out a little bit of space here. All right, and we are going to move on to our white glass. And you probably can't see this very well. You can probably, you see it all right. And this really shows how nice the little templates can be. So I'm gonna probably just cut this off just like that and try to salvage as much of this bigger piece as I possibly can for other projects. And you're going to want to kind of do something very similar here. So I just like to tap it just like that, see? And that's how I like to do it. Okay, so we've got a lot of pieces to cut here. Let's go ahead and get this swept off. Nice consistent glass cut right there. Just a even pressure. And sometimes I'll use my hands. It just depends if it's, you know, a little bit of a bigger area that I can cut, or if it's a smaller area, I will just sometimes switch between the grosures and the glass. I'm sorry, and using my hands. So this might be a little bit of a tricky piece. I foresee this breaking just like this if I'm not careful. So we're going to want to be very careful with this spot. We're probably going to cut it like this again. And then again, that'll give us a little bit more leverage on our grosures. So I'm going to go ahead and actually just cut it pretty much like I marked there. And that will meet up with our original score line. And again, with the flat end of the grosures on top. See how it broke? Just like that. And now we've got this little area that we're going to have to get out of there. So what I'm going to probably do is do another shallower cut like this. And then I will remove a little bit at a time. Just take your time here. And if you are doing this, you're going to want to remove that part before you cut this. You're going to want to cut this part first. Because if you cut this, you're just weakening this area. You're making it much smaller. It's way less likely to break here because I've got all this extra glass here. So you're going to want to make sure to do this interior radius cut first. And I'm probably just going to really kind of slowly try to remove a little bit of glass until I get down to that original score line. Just little by little. Oops. Got it. See that? So I can almost guarantee you, with the way that felt, if we had cut the bottom part first, you would be in some trouble. Okay. So now we're going to go ahead and cut that bottom part. That's a much easier cut to successfully do on the first try. It's almost completely straight. A little bit of a curve here, but we can grind that down if the actual score wasn't perfectly accurate. That looks pretty good. I'm just going to chew this part down just a little bit. And everything else, we will grind down. All the little other fine finishing touches here. So we've got our first leg cut. Get this glass out of our way. I'm actually going to bring our little trash can a little bit closer here. Okay, we're going to get this all swept off. There we are. We've got many more of these pieces to cut, and they are looking a little bit tricky, especially this guy right here. I think that's a tail. So let's go ahead and cut this down. We're going to separate it from the rest of the group. Can do that with my hands. Again, wear gloves if you're worried about it. And I almost made a mistake of doing the cut like this before doing this. So don't do that. Caught myself just before. So I'm going to probably bring it from the bottom, bring it around, and then actually I'm going to go ahead and cut this thing like this too, just to give my grosures that much more leverage. There we go. Now we want to remove this part. I think I'm going to do another shallow little bit of a shallower radius here. And we get a little bit of glass shards there. I want to make sure to remove all that. And then we can just slowly but surely just try to chip out that little stubborn spot. Got it. We got it. Very nice. Okay. Go ahead and remove this. So far, so good. Got a little bit of a spot right here we're going to want to take down a little bit further. With the grosers, and of course the grinder is just going to clean everything up. And we will do a nice cut here. Just like that. All right. And we do have a little bit of a spot right here. This is sort of where the other, the other foot kind of intersects it. We're going to just take that down on the grinder. There's a little bit of spot that's supposed to be gone there. So that is fine so far. Okay, now for this, let's see. Probably we're going to want to go ahead and separate everything. So we're going to start by doing probably something like this. Let's go ahead and get that separated. Then we can easily just cut those from there. And now we're going to want to separate this. And I can kind of do one of the cuts while I'm separating. We're going to want to be really careful here. I'm going to probably, oh, we got it. And this is going to be a little bit of a tricky one. Probably we'll go ahead and we can do this cut, I think. Let's see how it goes. Now this we're definitely going to have to tap through, because if we're a little bit too aggressive, it's going to break somewhere like this where it's a little bit weak. So we want to avoid that. We're going to want to just tap this through very nicely. So see this? I just tap it with the backside right underneath that score line. Lightly, lightly. A bunch of taps. Just to get that started. And I can already see it starting. Now I'm going to just put it upside down and just do a few more taps here. And this is very lightly tapping. I can see that score line. I wonder if I can show you on the close camera over here. Let's see if we can see it. See where it's starting. It's right next to my thumb. Get that light in the right spot. No, you're not going to be able to see it really. You can maybe barely see it. It's just barely starting right there. So I'm going to, try to continue that along my score line. And honestly, it might be a little bit too sharp here. We're going to see. We're going to see. Normally we would kind of cut it like this, and I might even just go ahead and do that. Let's see if I cause a problem with. You can see it's separating. Oh, it broke. See, it broke right in the wrong spot. See that? So we're going to have to recut this tail. That's probably going to be one of the harder pieces. And we've got plenty of glass to do it. So I am going to go ahead and put this aside. But that's all right. So this now doesn't matter. We can just remove that. And this is going to be a bit of a hard piece to cut. Again, we're going to cut this first and then this back part. So let's go ahead and do that. There we go. And we're going to want to cut it like this first. And we're going to want to do many shallow cuts for this one. So far, this is probably the, kind of the widest radius we've had to cut, an inside radius. So probably we're going to do many extra scores like this, like this. I think maybe one more after this one, and I honestly think that we can get it out like that. So let's see if I can show you this on the close camera. See, we've got all these extra little score lines. So we're going to break the glass like that, and it will gradually get us just that much closer to our original score line. Just taking out just the smallest areas, little by little. Get all that swept off. We're going to have a lot of little shards from this spot. And if it breaks, you know, where it's going to break is like this if it does. And if so, probably we'll stop around right here on the next one and just grind the rest of that. But we're going to see. We might be able to get it. And sometimes, there you go. Sometimes you can just chew it out with the corner just a little bit. Just enough to get us down to that original score line. I mean, I'm just very lightly. And to be honest with you, at this point, I'm probably just going to clean the rest of that up on the grinder. Well, we'll see. I'm a little bit stubborn. Let's see if we can go a little further. Oh, there it goes. And we're still intact. So, sweep all that off. Now, probably do this spot. Just like this. There we go. And then we can go ahead and do the rest. Go ahead and score the rest, because really none of these are too inherently weak. This one will probably be the worst one, but scoring the rest of it will not make it any worse or likely to break. Just like that. There we go. So we've got this piece. We'll clean that one up on the grinder a little bit when the time comes, of course. And let's see. This one's probably going to be a little bit of a tricky piece. So this one we're going to want to score just like this. And this one looks like I did actually make a little bit of that mistake of cutting the back side. So there's a lot less meat there, so it's going to be a little bit more prone to breaking in a disadvantageous way. But we're going to do a little thing with scoring each. Doing a few scores there. See if it'll be enough for us to just barely make it through, just like that. We got it. Okay. There we go. Go ahead and cut this one down here. So far not too bad. Just that one piece we broke so far for a recut. And so far most of the harder pieces are done except for that one tail piece. That's going to probably definitely be the hardest based on my, experience doing this project so far. And all these look to be pretty simple shapes here, so the rest of these I'm not too worried about. Now, the tiny little pieces for the little ears, those might be a little bit tedious, but I don't think they'll be too bad, especially because we can just score each edge before it gets too small. And then we can just break it all apart and it won't be a problem. So there we have it. This piece, where did this piece go? Oh, it sort of was in the neck area, looks like. A bit hard to tell. What are we looking at here? Yes, the neck area right there. Okay. All right. And this is sort of the nose area. If you can imagine, it sort of has its mouth sort of like this and a little nose right there. So we might put a little bit of copper foil, at least for the nose, because that's not too difficult there. I think it'll add a little bit of visual interest for the little doggy. And we've got the Husky for today. Do we have any dog lovers in the chat here, or in the comments after this video is posted to YouTube? Let me know if you've got a dog, if you've got a Husky especially. Might be related to the one we're making today. And I personally love dogs. I love dogs. If I could have... I am allergic, however. So it's a bit of a shame. Cannot have them. But I do love the dogs. There we go. All right, got this piece all trimmed down. And you can kind of see sort of what that piece was. We're going to go ahead and get this swept off. All right. This piece was just a random piece. This piece was part of the tail. Now this one's going to have a little bit of a weak spot right here. We'll just take our time with it and try to very carefully separate that one. There we go. Oops, got my thumb here a little bit, a few shards. Just sweep those out of there. This is a little bit of a tricky shape to hold. There we go. All right, we can clean that up on the grinder. And this one, where did this go? Oh, this was sort of the underbelly. And Bobby mentioned that she's got two dogs, small Doxy and small Terra Mix. And the grand dogs were bigger. One's a Husky. Well, this might be a good gift for the Husky owners. Bet you they'd like that. Get this little pieces fully scored, and we'll not have to worry about trying to score a tiny little piece of glass. This is sort of the ears area, and I had to do these of some kind of small pieces. And sometimes one thing to sort of keep note is that these little pieces of the vinyl, they can move around a little bit, and you kind of have to, you know, if they do, what I like to do is I'll trace this, and then when they move, it'll be very obvious underneath. The white glass will be exposed. So let's see if I can get by without exposing any white glass, and then we know I did all right. Okay, so yeah, I did all right here. So I'm going to go ahead and separate this, and I should be able to just separate this a few times. Let's see what we can do. Got that. Got that. Now this is one of those where I kind of need another pair of pliers when it gets very small. Now what I normally do, since I'm stubborn, to go walk over and get some, I will secure one side and just break it like that. So this is the tiny little ear. Put that where it's supposed to go. Okay, we got to cut this one down. And again, pieces are very small. Need to be a little bit careful. And we've got a tiny little spot right here. There's no way I will be able to grab that. So we're going to grab it with our grozers. And we will secure that spot that we're going to break off to the table. And just a little bit of pressure does it. And this one will be the other ear. So now all we need to do is recut the tail piece. And we're going to show you that right now. And then we are on to grinding. So we're making some pretty good progress here already. Okay, now this piece, I'm going to try to cut it, pretty efficiently. So I'm going to try to place it way over here. That will do. And we'll get a nice cut here. Now, probably what I'm going to do is, honestly, before I even, well, this is tricky. Yeah, I think before I even cut into there, I'm going to go ahead and cut this out right here like this, because it is far less likely for this to break all the way through there. Now, it could still break, right there, but, if I cut this out, then it's way more likely to break on those areas. So right here will be its pretty much strongest position. Now, the only downside here is that if it does end up breaking something like this, well, we're separating our big piece of glass. So we don't like that, but I think, I'm very confident that it's not going to do that. And even if it did, we can still use that piece. So we've got our first shallower cut off. And I think I'm going to do at least one more here. Just get it kind of right in between the glass edge and our original score line. We're just going to try to remove some glass here, slowly but surely. We might even be able to do another piece right here, but we're stubborn, so we're just going to there we go. There we go. So that was pretty much what we were expecting. I think the rest of that I'm just going to grind off. No big deal there. Get this all swept up. And now we're going to separate this piece from the rest. Let's see how well we do with that. Just using that vinyl as a nice guide here. And I think I'm even going to do something like this. So I don't have any problems. So I'm going to separate this from our bigger piece. Just like that. And now we're going to carefully begin popping off these perimeter pieces. Now this is feeling pretty weak right here. So I think I'm going to first of all sweep this off and then cut this a little bit closer, and then I'll be able to just piece that off quickly. There we go. Actually, I want the flat side on top. Oh, I did have it on top. Just very slowly. So right here it could break again. I'm going to go ahead and bring that down just a little bit more. I'm just being very careful here. Being careful with the glass and not to cut myself. We've got a little bit more, and we're pretty much right on it. So I don't think we need to do any more scores. See, there we go. We just got a few more little areas here. This is the last of the cutting for the Husky project. So we'll just do a little quick score, boop, like that, and back to there. All right, so that is all of the pieces cut. Now it is time to do some let's see, some grinding. Just want to make sure we got everything cut after all. I don't want to look silly here, forgetting a piece. There we go. All right. All right. So still early, of course, but this is sort of what we're looking at for this project. Looking pretty good so far. Okay, I'm going to put this glass away. We might still need some, but so I'm going to keep it close. But just to give me a little bit more room on the workspace here. And we are going to move this. And we're actually going to go ahead and switch back to the overhead camera. So we're going to bring out the grinder here. Move these things out of the way. All right, and everyone can see pretty well here. We're going to go ahead and grab our trusty water bottle with our little hole poked in it. Saturating the sponge. And that's how we do it. Okay. So now we're going to be taking these pieces and just grinding them down. And we're going to try to stick them right back onto our pattern over here. So this is also where this vinyl template just comes perfectly in handy. It just gives you the perfect template to grind right up against. And sometimes they do come undone. It kind of depends how well the glass is cleaned before. I actually didn't clean the glass at all before I started here, but I think that we can still kind of make it through. Because if that water kind of gets up underneath the templates, it can kind of unstick them a little bit. But like I said, I think even despite that, we're going to be all right. So we got our first piece pretty much all put together here. I'm going to go ahead and move this off to the side, and it'll start to give us an idea of what our panel is looking like. Switch over to the next piece. Make sure they're stuck down pretty well. And we'll see how well we can kind of see this here. See if I can give you another angle. So again, I just take it down till we get all the way to that pattern. And that seems to, I mean, you're going to see, it gives a really good fit when it comes time after the foil is applied and when it's time to begin soldering. You're going to see that the pieces end up fitting together very well, very nicely. So that will work for that. We're going to go ahead and take this off. And you can kind of try to stick them back down. And you can see our Husky coming to life slowly but surely. You can see over here on the side. We'll switch back. And grinding everything down like this, it prepares the glass pretty nicely for the copper foil to have a nice, pretty even surface to adhere to. So that is pretty helpful. And the grinder here, you can see it kind of fits in that leg. Now this is a 1-inch diameter grinder bit. We might have a space that actually the 1/4 inch would be a little bit more useful, but we're going to see. We're going to see how far along we can get with this. I'm just kind of peeling up the patterns as we finish them up. And this is that gray piece with that tiny little corner. And when it starts to get this little glass dust line, I'll just tap the sponge here, and it kind of resaturates it, for a little bit anyway. Now you do kind of need to push up on the edge of the glass in order to grind it effectively. So you may need some gloves here. My fingertips are pretty much leather at this point, so I don't really worry about it too much, but it's no problem in case you do have a bit of a hard time with the the feeling of the glass edge on your hand like that. And our Husky here is looking like it's coming to life pretty nicely. And this is one where the 1/4 inch might have been pretty helpful. And you can even do it in such a way where you still have the 1 inch available. So let's see how close in here we can get this. And it still is pretty much right on the pattern, even with just the 1 inch. But probably I would recommend getting the 1/4 inch bit for this one. So again, that would probably make this one a little bit less of a beginner-friendly pattern. But, I think we're going to be just fine even with using the 1 inch bit inside of this area. It's a little, if your glass didn't quite break very well, this broke all right. Maybe not perfect, but it broke well enough to where it's not going to be a problem whatsoever. Now, if yours did break a little bit more off, then you might need to, purchase that 1/4 inch bit. And that will allow you to grind in that little area a lot better than we're able to with this 1 inch bit. But, despite that, we are going to get this completely all touched up in all areas, and we are going to see how we are fitting. You can see these vinyl templates, they really do stick quite well for the mass majority of the project. Alright. So far we're looking pretty good. Kind of check this out. Got our Husky being pieced together. And And where I live in Texas, it is extremely warm. I do not think that a Husky would be very comfortable in this area. Albeit, I do see them occasionally. All right, kind of a complex shape there. Got that all ground down. Oop, make sure to take this off. Got some gray glass showing up once again. This is one of the last feet here. Oops, doing the wrong side. Grind that little curve in there. We're just going to grind out this little bit here. Again, it's not going to be perfect because our bit is a 1 inch instead of the 1/4, but that's all right. Still is going to look excellent. There we go. Remove this. And we've got the other leg ready now. All right. We can go ahead and switch over here. You can kind of see down here our progress so far as we bring the grinding to an end here. And after we finish the grinding, we're going to need to probably clean up all of these pieces very nicely, because this grinding creates this glass dust, and it has to be wiped off before we can copper foil. So we are knocking this down fully, and these pieces are pretty small and delicate. You're going to want to try to really match that as much as you can, that shape. It's just going to, especially in these areas where it's pretty fine little details here, it's going to be looking a lot better if you can match it a little bit better. And this one, I believe, is, yes, this is one of the ears. And it's very small. All right. We can round that over nicely. This is that mouth area. And here we go. And we've got, last but not least, this tiny little ear. And it's a little bit hard to tell because we traced it all in black, but as you, let me go ahead and just remove that actually so we can actually see it. And this one I got it pretty dang close to that pattern. So we are going to just knock down the edges, make sure everything is pretty much 90 degrees, and then we can move on with the foiling. Oops. Okay, so we've got the pieces all ground down. Now we need to clean everything very nicely. So this is pretty much the color formation so far that we've got. And I can show you another view here. So it's looking pretty good so far. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and move on to cleaning all of these. I'm going to move these right off of here and sweep this off. And then we've got quite a bit of cleaning and foiling to do. So we'll grab our rags here. And I normally just like to use glass cleaner, just whatever blue glass cleaner you got will pretty much work. And we want to make sure to clean the edges very well. And you might as well clean the face too, since you are already handling the glass and cleaning everything up. This will make everything much easier later on. And there's really not too many pieces here, so just take your time and make sure to get everything thoroughly cleaned, especially on those edges. And as we finish them, we're going to place them right back onto our pattern. And the glass cutting stuff we can move out of the way. And we've got to make a little bit of space here. All right. And this is one of my more exciting parts of the project, when you start to see the actual colors of the glass and the way it's going to be laid out. I'm really liking the way it is coming out with the gray and white. Kind of looks good. Has a good sort of shape to it. So I'm happy with this so far. Now, where does this one go? It's sort of this wacky shape right here. Is this it? No. How do you go? Like, just like that. No, that's not it, is it? There we go. So a lot of funky shapes here. Definitely no shape is going to fit in the place of another. So worst case scenario, just keep putting them down until you get the right orientation. And we'll do all the little gray pieces first. We will then move on to the white pieces. But yeah, so far this is coming out quite nicely. There we are. Got the first white piece, be the leg, right in the back there. And for the foiling, like most of the time, we are going to be using the black back today when we are going to be patining this panel black. And one of these days we're going to try out the copper patina. Let's see, I think next week, if I can remember, I think it's the candy next week. We have the candy, and what else do we have in this kit? I'd have to go over there and check. I don't remember. The candy, I don't think that would make too much sense as a copper patina. It's a little bit tricky to find which subject would work well with the copper patina. Seems like the black patina is just the most consistent. And to be honest with you, kind of the safest choice. So that's probably why I and maybe most people lean towards it the most. Sort of just, it kind of goes with everything. And it's kind of a safe choice. All right. What I'll normally do is I'll just saturate the rag And then, especially for pieces this small, if you're trying to spray all the pieces, they just get way too wet. Whereas if you kind of saturate the rag, you can pretty easily clean everything and still, in a relatively timely manner, instead of it just being super wet and having to pretty much just dry it off at that point. What I like to do is I like to wipe it with the kind of wet area and then dry it off in a different spot. And that seems to really get everything pretty much right up and off of there. There we go. We got this tail piece. It was the hardest piece to cut for us anyway on this go round. But we got it. And all these pieces are fitting together really nicely so far. And there's really no reason to really fit them together in as far as like a finished product fit, because we are going to need to still apply the copper foil. And so we're going to kind of mess it all up right after that. But once we do have that foil applied, then we're going to be really fitting them together as the finished product will appear. Okay, there we go. Oops, almost dropped that little earpiece. Our last little piece here. It's probably going to be the toughest to foil, but it won't be that bad. Okay, so this is kind of it so far. All finished cleaning up. Now we are ready to begin foiling. And we'll use our foiling apparatus here. And I like to use the lead dikes to cut those down. And we'll get you a pretty decent angle here. You can see how this little device operates. Got a little bit of grinder glass on there. So here is the black-backed foil. I'm going to go ahead and cut a little bit off, just in case some impurities got into that adhesive there. And so what we're going to do is take our glass and you simply stick it into the little groove, and it will center that glass on that foil, and then we can just run it through, pushing that glass into that foil. Before you know it, we have a fully foiled piece. And not only is it fully foiled, but it is nicely centered, so we have a pretty even reveal on both sides of the foil. And what I will do is just kind of fold it down, zip it up to the next corner. When you get to that corner, fold it over, and we are going to burnish a little bit later on, after all these pieces are done being foiled. So that's our first piece, pretty nicely done here. And again, we're going to put the pieces onto our pattern. Just gives us an idea of about how far along we are. And you can see that this works on all weird shapes. And for me, it is my preferred method over the actual hand foiling. But to be honest with you, this I far more prefer. At least I'm better at this than the hand foiling. And these areas where it's got a little bit of this very kind of concave radius here, you kind of have to really push that in there because it can tear. I think I might have felt it tear just now, and we'll look at that and we'll show you how to fix that here in just a moment. There we are. So we've got a few little tears here. I'm going to show you how to fix that on the close camera. Before we go over there, I'm going to make sure everything else pretty much looks good. And when we really start to burnish everything, it will kind of come out looking nice and smooth and everything. I'm going to do a little bit of burnishing here before I move on to the next piece. I should say before I show you how to do the repair, because it's going to be an unstable repair if you do it over an unburnished area. So this foil, it's pretty much just completely off just like that. And so what I like to do, and we might even need to do a few pieces here. I'll take out a little strip, and this is quite a lot more than a little strip, so I'm going to cut that down. I like to move over here to the close camera. I will overlay a little bit here. Oops, and this one got a little bit tangled up, so I'm going to remove that. Let's see, I'm going to overlay a little bit like that, cut it down. Fold this over, and then we're going to do pretty much the same thing right here next to it. And then we're going to trim that to a smooth transition with the X-Acto blade. Just like that. Grab out our X-Acto blade. Cut this down very carefully. And then we'll pick up the excess. Just like that. And we've got a little bit of excess back here. Trim that down. Now this side really wasn't having a problem, but it was the piece that I placed was a little bit long and overlaid on this side too. So that's what that was. Okay. So now with this we can essentially, it'll be ready for burnishing. We'll take off that little piece right there. Okay. This was one of the legs. And this one definitely is more of a not beginner friendly one. Definitely one you can work up to if you are a beginner, but be advised. Try a different pattern first. We've got tons of free patterns available. There's really no reason to pick this one first, in my opinion. Unless you are just a die-hard Husky lover. I think that you might be better off trying a different one. And we've got a lot of these little concave radiuses here. That's where the foil is most likely to break because it kind of stretches. On these other curves, see, it's the opposite way. It's like a convex curve. It will crinkle over itself, but it will not tear. So there you have that. There we have it. This is an easy piece. Okay, there we go. So I'm kind of working the foil down over the face, zipping up to the next corner, fold that over, zipping it up, and these areas are just applying a little bit of pressure, just trying to get that foil adhered until we get to burnishing. And this little foiler here, it really does work well even for all these weird shapes. I have timed myself, and I've been, I believe it was half the time, and if you check out the how to copper foil video, I did do a timer on that one, and it was just way faster for me versus the hand foiling. And so again, if you're not aware, this is a part of our Stained Glass Mastery community where we do these free classes, and we've got tons of free resources. And this is the week 2 of the May 2025 kit. So we already finished up another kit. It was the April kit, and that contained several. Had 4 patterns: the strawberries, star, shell, and a landscape. So that was a good one. Definitely probably more beginner friendly than the May kit. So if you are interested in that, be sure to check out those video tutorials. And of course, if you'd like to follow along exactly with the same materials, you can purchase that April 2025 kit. There we go. And we've got a few more pieces here to finish applying the foil. And as I am doing this, I'm just checking the glass edges for any bit more of that glass dust, because that will make it a lot more unlikely for the glass to be adhered to. I want to avoid that. And sometimes on these areas with the concave radiuses, if you sort of rub your finger on there, it will kind of heat up the foil, and it seems like it stretches just a little bit better without tearing. And sometimes it does still tear, but it seems like it just helps a little bit kind of gradually work that foil down instead of sort of forcing it down and then it tears. So I did have a few pieces here that needed to be repaired. And it is worth it to do the quick little overlays, because you are going to see that little separation in the foil if you don't. So I do recommend going ahead and putting those repairs on. We'll take care of that after we finish burnishing. And this Kokomo gloss is actually a little bit thinner than the white gloss. The gray gloss is a little bit thinner than the white gloss. So it fits in that little groove really easily. So again, right here, you can kind of just gradually put your finger over the face, and you might get away with no rips whatsoever. But if you get one, it's not the end of the world. Just apply a little bit more foil. All right. A few more little pieces here. Sometimes these smaller pieces are kind of hard to get a hold of. Just gotta be a little bit extra patient with those. And we've got maybe 3 more pieces after this one left. So we are making some good progress here today. There we are. Everything's fitting together quite well so far. This is one of the little ear pieces. And actually I almost lost the tiny earpiece, but I saw it over in the corner. It was disguised as a scrap piece. You can see this foiler works even on these tiny little pieces just like that. Okay. A couple more here. Pretty much every piece in this pattern is a really bit of a complex shape. So this video is probably going to be one of the longer videos. There we are. All right. Got that little face piece. Here's that tiny little ear. We're going to have to just do this one by hand. It's way too small. So we're just going to center that up. Just like you would normally by hand. And if you sort of don't put it in the right spot the first time, you can peel it up and replace it, but you could probably only do that a couple times. If you do that too many times, you're going to end up pretty much removing all of that adhesive, and it's just not going to work out very well. Oops, there we go. So again, just trying to handle this tiny piece. So that's another thing I like about this foiler. It also operates just as a normal foil, you know, sort of holds the foil for you. You can just pull it out and hand foil if you really wanted to. as we had to just now. That looks pretty good. Got the little earpiece. And our last piece here is the face. We're going to go ahead and trim this off. And we'll go ahead and roll our last of the foil here. And I am going to be keeping this foil out in case we need to do any further repairs from the burnishing, which is always pretty much a good idea, because that burnishing can damage the foil, because you need to kind of apply a decent amount of pressure to get it to stick well, and by doing that you can damage it. Okay, so we pretty much got all of our pieces with the foil applied, and we can take a quick look at all of the shiny foil here. Again, we still need to burnish it, but this will kind of further give you an idea of what we are looking at here. Looking pretty good so far. And you can see here's all of the backing we used. So a fair bit of foil. And now for the last time, we are removing all of our pieces from our pattern. We're going to be burnishing and placing them back onto the pattern for the last time, because after that it will be time to solder. So for burnishing, I like to use this fid. I apply it, so let me get that out of the way. I apply pressure on the edge of the glass first, and then on the face, and be very careful around the curves and the corners where the folding took place. And you want to do the edges first, because if you don't, you can trap air, and that can cause the foil to fail if some flux or something gets in there. So you're going to want to do the edge first and then the faces. And while we are burnishing these, we are going to want to pay close attention to the foil to see if there's any little mistakes we need to correct. Because once you're sort of done burnishing, you're probably not going to notice any more mistakes until after you're done soldering, which is a little bit too late. So we do have a little repair to do right here. I'm going to pull a little bit of this out. Just put a little piece here. Actually, I'm going to put it the other way so we can sort of fold that over. And we don't need too much, about that much to do. And this right here tore from this curve, so that's why we have to place a repair there, and then on the close camera we are going to cut that nice smooth transition. Then peel up the excess. And there we have it. Just like that. Got it. So our first piece that is ready for solder, one of the legs. And we can do another leg. This is another bit of a complex shape here. Doing that edge first. Right into that face. And right here I did damage this foil a little bit. These curves are extra sort of sensitive, if you will. You have to be a little bit more careful with them. But nothing we can't fix. Again, a little piece. I'm just going to cut a little piece off and overlay it. And then I can cut this off too. We'll burnish this down and then cut it for a nice smooth transition. Good as new. And all of this stuff right here, we can clean that off after we're done. And when you are burnishing, you're going to want to do it from the outside in whenever you're doing the faces. That'll keep you from knocking that foil right off that gloss edge. There we go. Next piece. And this is a pretty important step because the quality of the adhesion of the foil will dictate the overall longevity of the panel. So you're going to want to make sure that everything is properly adhered. Both sides. I think I did this side already. Can't hurt to do it one more time. There we go. And I am liking this combination of this gray and white gloss. It looks pretty good for the Husky here. There we are. And again, a pretty tight radius here. You're just going to want to take your time, really push that foil onto that glass edge. Make sure it's all looking good. All right. And this step, it's a lot of the same sort of motions here. We're making sure got everything very nicely adhered. And this is really, you know, if you have a partner or your spouse and you'd like to sort of have an activity to do together, one of these kits could be a pretty useful date night or you know, a fun thing to do together. And even if you both work on just one panel or separate panels, you know, the kits come with 2 patterns for each one, and I don't know if you'll be able to do each pattern twice, you know, to do all the patterns twice, I should say. But no doubt you can do at least a few of them more than once. That I know for sure. But you know, it might be a little bit tricky to try to do all of them twice with just one kit of glass. Now, to do them once, for sure. And to be honest with you, if you really don't waste a lot of glass, or you know, if you're pretty good, you might be able to actually get away with doing all of them twice. For the April kit, I definitely had enough glass to do that project again. I definitely used probably maybe 1/3 of the glass that was in the kit. So, you know, I don't know if I would have been able to do them all 3 times, but definitely 2 times for the April kit. So it's a pretty good pretty good activity. And the vinyl patterns, if you really kind of save them, you can probably get away with using them again too. And if nothing else, you could use them as a tracing pattern. So if the adhesive is pretty much failed, you can still sort of put it on there onto the glass and trace the perimeter with a black marker, something like that. And that will work just fine too. And you could also probably use like an Elmer's glue stick or something like that. And something that has a water-soluble glue. So you could kind of glue them onto the glass and then sort of extend the life of them that way. And as we make a little bit of progress here, the Husky glass is starting to fit together very nicely. And the gray and whites are pretty good colors for this project. In this kit, we do have the gray and white glass, of course. We also have a reddish and sort of a lavender white streaky glass. And if you haven't seen, we did do an unboxing on the week 1, which was the Dove. So we got to see all 4 glasses. And of course, last week we only used the white glass. This week adding in the white and gray glass. And next week with the candy, it is the red and white. And I actually am not remembering right off the top of my head what the week 4 is for the May kit that we're doing right now. But I know that one will incorporate that last glass type. And another pretty nice thing about these kits is that we do not do the exact same glass twice. And we've got 12 kits, so that's 48 glasses that are planned. And they vary, you know, they might be the same color code, but they have a different texture, if nothing else. So even though, or they might be iridescent versions of that same color. So even though it might, you might have 2 white glasses, like we did in the April kit, we also had a white glass. But that one was an iridescent version. So it's, even though they're both white, the same 200S white color code from Oceanside Glass, one of them was iridescent. So it was still a little bit different. And that will, if you sort of gradually purchase the kits, that will give you a pretty nice palette to work with. And you won't be, you know, buying a lot of the same glass over and over, which is a pretty nice thing I wanted to make sure we did. I didn't want to be making people keep buying the same glass over and over and over. Okay, got that little piece there. We're making some pretty good progress for the burnishing. And as you burnish, you can kind of really see all that foil. It starts to kind of smooth out wherever it's kind of crinkled up. So that's how you know it's pretty much well adhered. And that's if you're using a really smooth gloss. It'll sort of take that texture, whatever that gloss texture is. So in this case, all the glosses we're using here are pretty relatively smooth. And so subsequently, this copper foil is looking pretty smooth too. I really like this fid because it has this nice flat edge here. You can really get into a lot of texture if your gloss contains a lot of texture. Whereas something that's a little bit more of a blunt, rounded object, it might have a harder time getting into all that texture. So a fid like this plastic one that I'm using here, I most prefer. Now the little foiler, it does work very well whenever the glass is a true 1/8 of an inch thick for the as far as centering it on the foil. Now if it is, the glass is a little bit too thick, it doesn't fit in the groove. So what we have to do there is you sort of pull the glass out from the, you sort of have to hand foil it just a little bit for in case it doesn't fit in that groove, which is not the end of the world. The vast majority of the glasses are pretty much right at that 1/8 inch. Occasionally, the the glass, it is made by hand, so it might have a little bit of a varying thickness and it won't fit in the little groove right here of this foiler. So occasionally we run into that problem, but again, not the end of the world. You can pretty easily just hand foil those few pieces, and the vast majority of them will probably still be able to fit in the little foiler. And this is that tiny little dog ear. We're just trying to really burnish it down. Make sure we don't have any problems here. And these are, of course, all made by hand, so nothing's ever going to be 100% perfect. But that doesn't mean we don't want to try to pretty much get it there as much and as close as we can. So, again, we're not rushing here. We're just taking our time, trying to make sure we can do the best work that we possibly can. Alrighty. Got that little ear. And now we've got 2 more pieces here. And these look like they're going to need a little bit of some repairs. Go ahead and do the edge first. Knock down the faces. Make sure everything is looking really good. Then we'll go ahead and scab on another piece of this copper foil. All right. Alrighty. And I did a little repair here. I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of a curve that mimics that glass edge. I don't want it to look like I just stuck a foil right on there. There we go. That looks a little bit better. And we've got one last piece here. And I'm going to go ahead and turn on the iron, get that heated up. And then we're going to be whipping out our fume extractor. And we are going to be getting the soldering going. Now for the soldering today, we are going to be using the lead-free solder. And it's got a bit of a higher melting point than the 6040, so we are using a 100-watt iron, and it gets hotter than the little Hacko temperature-controlled iron, so that's why I use it for the lead-free solder. I really like that feature with the on-handle temperature control, but unfortunately it just does not quite get hot enough even at the hottest setting. You can kind of manage to do it, but it's a little bit tedious. You know, it just doesn't get quite hot enough. It kind of takes a little bit longer to heat that solder up. So that's why I kind of prefer to avoid that one. So, and Sarah asked how to find the items so that you can purchase them. Well, so we sell them on our website, and I'll go ahead and link everything here in the video description, and I'll go ahead and put a pinned comment. And so that way you can check that. And also, if you wanted to, you can join the Stained Glass Mastery community. I'll go ahead and post a link to that as well, where it has all of the tool links and tool lists that I recommend. And of course, it has our monthly stained glass kits so that you can, pick those up too. And then, of course, you will be emailed to join us for the weekly live stream so that you can follow along and we can get our projects all made together. So it is a pretty good time doing these projects. And right now I am just trying to really get this just all lined up where I want it. And I'm trying to really follow the pattern as much as I can. It's probably a good idea to go ahead and print out the free pattern on a printer also, so that way you can put the pieces onto that pattern instead of the vinyl pattern, which does have the little lines, but you can't really see them quite as well. Okay, so this is looking pretty good. Just barely making some tiny adjustments here and there. And we're going to go through and solder we're going to tack solder the joints. And so we're going to take a quick look to see how well we did. So here we are. Can I get a roof for our Husky here? So we've got, pretty mild to very little gaps between the glass. And this is kind of what you can expect when using these vinyl patterns. They just give you such a good template to follow. Really takes a lot of the sort of guesswork and the skill curve out of it. So I'm really enjoying using those. We're going to go ahead and get to the soldering here. Let me get you in a good position. There we go. Okay. So we've got this. I'm going to go ahead and put some gloves on because I like to try to protect my hands as much as I can here. So let me go ahead and put everything on while our iron is still heating up. And we are going to be using a lead-free solder. All right, and we've got our little fume extractor here. So we're going to get that turned on. And I'm probably going to move this a little bit closer over here next to our fume extractor. And that will just suck up all those fumes, get them away from us. And so here I've got a little bit of flux in this little container. And I am just going to plop down a tiny little bit of material. On these joints, trying to be as careful as I can because these pieces are completely loose right now. And anytime I tap them around, they move. So we're going to want to be really careful there. Let me go ahead and grab up the solder here, the lead-free solder. And we are going to tack all of these joints down. Oops, move that leg just a little bit. Oops. Kind of a little bit of a domino effect. You move one thing and it starts to move a lot of things. So you just want to really take your time here. There we go, that looks good. So you see that? We're just putting a little bit of solder down. Just tacking in those joints. I'm going to put a little bit more flux right there. And these little tiny pieces right here. Okay, good. I did flux them. Okay, good. And actually, I think this thing is pretty much all solidified together. So I'm going to actually go ahead and move this off of the pattern. And we can see that with just a few little tacks, this thing is holding together. So this will be a good starting point. Get this vinyl pattern out of the way for our next time. And right now I'm just going to really get everything soldered up so everything is holding together very well. I'm going to put a bunch of flux all over this thing. I'm going to go ahead and tin all the perimeter, and that'll make edge beading a whole lot easier when the time comes. Okay? So see, that's just tinning the edge. I'm applying a fair bit of solder to all of the copper foil. And of course we got our fume extractor to suck up all those fumes. Normally I'd be wearing a mask, but it's very difficult to talk at the same time. So this fume extractor, at least for my purposes here, it does actually pretty much remove 100% of the fumes. But if you don't have a pretty powerful fume extractor, and you can use a fan outside, something like that. But I would probably still recommend wearing a mask, an N95 mask, or you can wear a vapors mask with the the particles for particulates also. They make those cartridges for those it's more of a respirator, a full or half face respirator. I think the full face would be a little bit overkill for sure. But a half face, that's totally appropriate, I think. Now this one, it's only held on by such a small area, so if you get it molten in the ears area, they're liable to fall right off if you move around the piece too much. So that's why we're going to go ahead and just do a quick bead here, and we're going to do a little bit of a nicer bead in a little bit very soon. And not a little bit of nicer, a much nicer bead very soon. So this, now you can see we are fully soldered. We're going to flip it over. Oh, and I forgot actually to remove those things. So let me grab my X-Acto blade and we'll do that right now. There we go. Probably someone saw that and was saying, hey, wait a second. And I didn't hear you. But I caught it. I caught it before it was too late. And they were well burnished. I just completely forgot to cut that stuff out of there. Okay, no big deal though. Got that cut out. And now we are going to flux this side pretty heavily, as you can see. And we are now ready this. I'm going to go ahead and put on my heat resistant gloves also, because sometimes the normal gloves gets a little bit toasty on those fingertips. And let's just see how well this works out here. Okay. So we're going to actually try to do a pretty nice bead on this side, much as we can. And again, we're tinning all the perimeter. Now, what makes a nice bead is when it's nicely rounded over. If it's sort of flat or sunken in, that is not what we want, and it needs to be pretty much redone. And you can kind of tap it along, and that can help you to have that nice rounded edge. But, you know, just make sure to take your time, and we want to make sure to do as well of a job as we can. So again, we're having this little bit of a sunken look here, and we can add a little bit more solder and then sort of tap it along, trying to keep that molten edge, and that way you don't get any, you know, wrinkles where the molten edge meets a kind of a cool or solidified edge, if that makes sense. And again, tinning the edges, because we're going to be edge beating that. Right now we're putting on solder pretty heavily. This first sort of coat, it really needs quite a bit. If you're going back to do little touch-ups, you do not need as much, but this first coat, to get that nice rounded bead, you need to kind of lay it on there pretty heavily. And we are going to want to leave a little bit of a void right here inside between the legs. I think it's going to add a little bit of visual interest there. So we are going to want to do that. So be sure not to fill that in. If you do, you can just take your wire brush and you can just brush it out. Or you can pick up the panel and the molten solder will just fall from gravity. So that's another pretty good option. I'm actually going to switch these gloves out here for just a second. Okay. And so you can kind of feed the tip with solder and kind of move it along the foil, and it'll slowly kind of disperse that. And that's one way you can apply a fair bit of solder. We're going to make sure all these edges are tinned. And then we're going to pretty much go back and make sure that this side looks good, because it's looking a little bit rough right now. So we might need to add a fair bit of solder, and then we're going to be tapping along, get that nice rounded appearance. Just like that. Then we'll go ahead and tap this along. And little by little, we're going to correct all these little solder runs. Make sure everything, and a lot of it doesn't look too bad, but we're just going to go over the whole thing, make sure everything looks good. And then we will move on to the edge beading. and then onto the finished solder on the front side. This is the back side that we are looking at right now. And we're going to kind of handle that void between the feet on the next side. And we're getting really close here for this part. Okay, good. So this side I'm pretty much happy with. And we're going to move on to edge beading. So let's see what the best way for me to show that to you would be. Let's see, let me pick this up just a little bit. Okay. And there's our Husky. Looking pretty good so far. All right, yeah, this will work just like this. So what I like to do is take out your solder, sort of put in a spot that you can pick up a little bit at a time, and then just tap it. And you're going to want to position the panel in such a way that it's advantageous with gravity. And this is why you absolutely must have these heat-resistant gloves, or else you'll be flinching in pain from the heat here. And if you look at some of my earlier videos, that was something that I did for a while. Not proud of that. I definitely recommend just getting some of these gloves. And if it drips onto one of the faces, we can take care of that when we lay it back down flat. Right now we're just trying to, and this, it really adds quite a bit of strength to the pieces instead of just having a tinned edge. And it also adds a decent bit of, it just looks much better on the perimeters. And some people, they'll even do some decorative beadwork. And what I mean by that is I don't think I did this part. They'll add some, some thicker beads in a pattern, and it comes out looking pretty good. I quite like the way it looks sometimes. This video is already running a bit long, so we're not going to be doing any of that on this round. And so you can see that I rotate the panel, and I'm kind of trying to just hit any spot I can with the way gravity is situated, oriented on the panel at that moment. So you can see, since gravity is going straight down, I can do these parts of the leg. And before I had to do the other part. But that is looking good. So let's see, we did all of this spot. I think we were going like this. Okay, yeah, we're pretty much right here. We've done all that spot. Now we're moving along this way. And I think this might need a little bit more flux here. I'm going to flux this up. Doesn't take much, to be honest with you. And you need to be careful whenever your hands are directly underneath that bead you're working on, because it can and will get you. I do have the burns to prove it. Right here's our little ear poking up. I want to make sure to save that. And I think for this part where the nose is, I do think I'm going to do a little bit of a heavier, if I can get it. Let's Let's see if I can. See, it keeps running to the outside there. I don't think it's going to work. Maybe when it cools off, we might be able to. But for right now, we're going to leave it as is. And we'll see if we can get a little bit of solder into there. There we go. And if you do get some droplets on the table like this, just leave them. They're going to have a lot of burnt wood in them, or whatever your table substrate is, and it's just going to kind of make a mess on your panel there. So you're going to want to avoid using those. And so now we are back to finishing the front face. So you can see when we're working on the back side, it kind of bleeds through a little bit, which is no problem. We can pretty easily work through that, make some nice rounded beads here. And we've got a few more things after finishing this front side we need to do. Number one, adding a hook. And number two, cleaning up and patinaing it. And so once we have got that done, we'll pretty much have our finished product here. And I hope you guys are liking the way that it is looking so far. Let me know what you think, as we are sort of approaching the end of this project. Okay. So I am satisfied with the beadwork here on the front side, and now we need to do the hook on the back side so that it is not visible. And I think, let's see, I think we're going to want to do it from this joint right here. That will just give us a nice sort of vertical hanging appearance. And I'm just going to grab a little bit more of this solder. Just trying to round this out a little bit better if I can. There we go. So this is the back side. We are going to want to use some wire. And what I like to do is take this out. We're going to cut it down, make a little ring with it. And then in this case, we are going to tie it up so that we can put it down this solder line. So now I'm going to just kind of spin this around a few times, make a little bit of this braided sort of cable here, snip that off, and then we can tack this in place to start right there. We're going to tack it first, and then we can really submerge it into the solder. So let me flex this up, and we'll see if this is going to get too hot for even through these gloves, because this thing, it conducts heat very quickly. Yep, it did. So that got really hot really quickly. Let's see if, what I'm probably going to need to do is grab it with the Grosers. Conducts a lot of heat really quickly. So let me just move this over here to give you a little bit of a better idea what's going on. So I am going to grab it from the edge with the Grosers. I'm going to desolder this by heating it up. And there it goes. And now I'm going to resolder it right where I want it. And if I heat it up, I might be able to kind of submerge it down. See that? There you go. See that? You want to just submerge it down into there. And then add a fair bit of solder on top. And you're just trying to hide this thing as much as you can. Blend it into that other solder. And even though it's the back side, you still want it to look good. Okay? And so there we have it. We're going to go ahead and let's see here. We're going to go ahead and grab our patina. So we're using this black Nova Can patina. And you just put it onto your rag. And you can put it on pretty heavily. See that? We just pour it on there. And you can just wipe it onto your panel. And we're going to be patinaing both sides here. And you can kind of see that difference right there with the bare solder versus the patina. There we are. You can really see all that. Looks really good. And you are going to want to wear gloves when handling this patina because it is a acid. So it, you know, it's probably not good to be touching that and all that type of stuff. So you're going to want to be wearing some gloves. At least that would be my recommendation. It is a free country, and you should do as you wish. Just keeping this. It does sort of, when you apply the patina onto the panel, something does sort of seem to happen where it kind of gets like this dirty stuff. Let me see if I can show you on the close camera. See, it gets all this brown stuff. So you are going to want to kind of keep reapplying it, and it will gradually you know, just keep darkening up that solder. Looks better and better. Kind of gets more and more consistent when you keep going over it a few times. And we are going to go ahead and do the back as well. And I hope that you all are enjoying this. Again, this is the week number 2 of the May stained glass kit. We have many more projects to come. If you did enjoy this, be sure to check out the Stained Glass Mastery community and tune in next week, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. We will be completing the week 3 candy of the May stained glass kit. And we can see next week our Husky hung up right next to our Dove from the week 1. Taking a little bit of a break from the animals for the week 3. And if you join the Stained Glass Master community, you will actually see all of the patterns for, we have several months in advance prepared and ready. And as we finish the videos, we will be adding those videos to the course pages. And so last but not least, we are going to go ahead and clean up our Husky stained glass panel here. Again, just some blue glass cleaner like we always do. Nothing too fancy. We don't want to overthink it. We just want to get into it and not get paralyzed by worrying about every little detail too much. We want to get into it and make some progress, do some projects. And this is a pretty fun one. So again, everyone, I hope that you enjoyed this video. We'll switch back over here to the main camera. Oop, that's a little bit too bright. We've got the Husky stained glass for the week number 2 of the May stained glass kit. And let's see if maybe this one will give us a bit of a better view. Yeah, that looks really good. So everyone, I hope you enjoyed this. Again, thank you so much for watching. If you are interested in more stained glass content, subscribe to the Mr. Stained Glass YouTube channel. And we will see you next week for the week 3 of the May stained glass kit. Goodbye.